Hi, Anthony Carruthers, Better Lesson Master Teacher Project, and in this reflection, I'll be talking about the differential learning that sometimes takes place in discovery lessons, such as the one on defining reflections. So in this lesson, basically students are supposed to make a number of observations and then try to generalize some things about reflections. And what I noticed after teaching the lesson was that different students got different amounts of learning out of the activities. So the question I was left with is, how do I go back and clean it up to make sure that all students have the opportunity to get out of the lesson what I had hoped that they would get. So for example, on this particular question here, number 4, students were asked to find the midpoint of each segment that joined a point on the image and the corresponding point on the pre-image. But then they were also asked to make some kind of statement about this collection of points, like anything that they noticed that seemed noteworthy. So you'll see this student here got all the midpoints correct, but then also commented that all the midpoints are collinear, which is exactly what I was hoping the students would see. But then if you contrast that with this next student, who also got all the midpoints correct, but seemed to neglect the question as far as what they noticed about the collection of midpoints. So this would tell me that, for that student, definitely they did not get that part of the lesson, so it would be important for me to go back and, to the whole class, explain that that's an important thing to know about reflections. Okay, in the same kind of way, this will be another student who on the 8th question, which is really the place where I was hoping all students would kind of put everything together and get all of the main characteristics of reflections. This student left that question completely blank. So definitely something that I had hoped would occur for all students apparently did not occur with this student. Here is another paper, a student I would describe as getting most of what I wanted them to get out of the lesson. So you'll see the student writes, the line, and this is in number 7 here, the line is the line of reflection. It shows where the pre-image reflected over making the image. And then on number 8, you'll see they say, the slope of the line of reflection, 3/2, is the opposite reciprocal, one of the main things I wanted them to see, of all the slopes of the lines like C prime and A prime, which are -2/3. From this, I can conclude the line of reflection is perpendicular to the lines AA prime, BB prime, etc. So a couple of critiques I would have on this. I see how she's giving the segment lengths as examples, but she hasn't quite reached the level of using the precise language that generally describes these pairs of segments. And then also one of the main things that I was hoping students would realize is that the line of reflection is the perpendicular bisector, and you can see that language is never mentioned here. So again, that's something that I would want to go back and clean up for the entire class to make sure that they get everything out of the lesson that I intended, in addition to whatever they got on their own. Then you'll see this student whose response I would say is the most complete of the ones I've showed so far. And this student says that line TU, which is the reflection line, is perpendicular to AA prime, BB prime, CC prime, DD prime, and EE prime. So listing examples as the previous student did, but then the student also kind of synthesizes that in the boxed portion here. It says, I can conclude that the segments that connect vertices on the pre-image to their corresponding vertices on the image and the line that travels through the midpoints of those segments are perpendicular. So definitely that student is generalizing, definitely using precise language, but still not actually mentioning the point about the perpendicular bisector. It's clear that he's understanding that concept, but again, when I go back to clean everything up, I want to make sure that students are mentioning that explicitly. So just something that I learned after teaching this lesson, basically the importance in a discovery lesson of going back and being explicit about the things that you had hoped students would discover during the lesson. Okay, Anthony Carruthers, Better Lesson, Master Teacher Project.